In our study of peer inclusion and exclusion, we found many interesting things about how children react to peer inclusion or exclusion and how it relates to their overall emotional well-being. For example, unsurprisingly, the children in our study reported being happiest when they were included in play and reported being saddest when they were excluded from play. We also found that children's heart rate was highest when they were included in play, which could mean that they are excited, happy, or even that they were anticipating being able to go run around and play with the kids who wanted to play with them. And they were physiologically gearing up for that increase in activity. We were seeing positive arousal of the flight, fight, or fun system in response to peer inclusion. But we also found something unusual and a little unexpected. The children's RSA, that measure of parasympathetic regulation that's so important for social engagement, was highest when children were excluded by their peers. So even though the children reported feeling saddest when they were excluded, their physiological reactions showed lots of parasympathetic activity when they were excluded. Now, if they were being excluded, why would they need to be using the branch of their nervous system that is often linked to social engagement? It turns out that people are complicated. What we were seeing is that children who were excluded were using their parasympathetic nervous system not to orient themselves towards social engagement, but to calm and soothe themselves after being excluded from play. And this was particularly true for children who had fewer emotional and peer problems. When parents and teachers reported those children as being generally emotionally healthy, those children responded to social exclusion by saying they were sad and then using their parasympathetic nervous system to calm and soothe themselves. We also saw that children who had more peer problems and more emotional problems reported being less happy when they were included and tended to not try to regulate or calm themselves down when they were excluded from play. And this tendency not to try to regulate or calm themselves down was associated with those same children continuing to have peer problems later. What I found most interesting in this and related research is that children and adults who are more generally anxious or who have more emotional problems report feeling less positive emotion during social inclusion and report heightened anxiety at the prospect of being included in social activities, even if they want to be a part of those activities. Whether you have anxiety or not, I'm sure this is something we can all relate to and have all experienced. It's part of why we get jitters before first dates or job interviews, for example. The prospect of actually going on the date is terrifying, even if it's a date we really want to go on. In my own life, this is the kind of catch-22 that has prevented me from going to a local knitting social group, even though I want to go and it's an activity I know I'll enjoy. But it makes me anxious to think about interacting with a bunch of strangers, even though we share a common interest. And in the academic world, we see this all the time. You get invited to another university to give a lecture, which is really a great experience and important for your career. But you start getting nervous the day before you leave. It's a little bit like that first date. You're looking forward to it, but once the time comes, you start getting anxious about the unknowns of what might happen. This sort of thing is perfectly normal, as long as your anxiety doesn't prevent you from engaging in these somewhat terrifying but ultimately enjoyable social experiences. And what we saw in our research is that young children who are already having some of those early signs of emotional or peer problems might have a harder time overcoming those initial reactions than other children. And that pattern might be preventing them from improving their emotional or peer problems later. Maybe this means I should finally go to that knitting night after all.